So, welcome back to the Small Business Mindset. I am actually so excited that I get to have somebody in the real estate industry on the podcast because, as you know, I'm in commercial real estate. I work in a Midwest market, a smaller market, but many times I don't get to come into contact with true real estate professionals that are six-figure plus earners. And I think that is a little differentiation, whether you're in real estate, you're an independent contractor, or you're a small business owner. I think the achievement we want to go for in all of our businesses is that we're making at least in that six-figure income and are high producers. So I'm thrilled to welcome Randi Quigley to the show. Randi is a seasoned real estate professional in the Chicago area, which I have some family members that live in that area too. But I'm interested to hear her story because she just released her second book. This called From Posts to Profits, with the subtitle being A Realtor's Playbook for Building a Thriving Real Estate Business Through Social Media and Brand Influence. So, Randi, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thank you so much for having me.
And thank
Yes,
you
I'm
for
excited to
joining
be
us on
here.
your holidays.
Okay.
I know.
I know, I'm sorry. I'm gonna just go ahead and say it so it's out there. I'm in mom mode. I've got 4 kids, so I'm not dressed for this podcast. So I'm watching not online. I apologize.
You look great. And so if it's any consolation, I record from my home office, so I'm here at home and I
Okay.
have slippers on if that helps.
Okay, great. I got gym shoes. Well, that's the good thing is that this podcast or whatever we can talk about is how you don't need to always be physically ready to still make that 6 to 7 plus, figure income, right?
Not at
Just be
all.
yourself.
Randy, would you just walk us through? Because I know I Googled you a little bit. I had a little bit of background about you. Walk us through your professional experience. I mean, how did you grow a real estate business? Why did you get into it in the first place? I think for a lot of us, and you and I talked briefly right before we jumped on here, the barrier to entry in real estate is low. Anyone can get the real estate license. Quite honestly, I mean, you need a high school diploma or a GED. You take a course and you pass a test. I mean, that's kind of it. But then it's a matter of once you're in the industry to actually make money is a considerable challenge. But I want you to share with our listeners, your story. What happened to you and how did you succeed?
Yeah, so what's crazy about that is that I am growing a team over here finally after how many years? Because I've been very hard to build my brand, but now I'm at a point where I'm like, okay, I need to grow and find the right people. But 75, I saw this stat from the NAR, 75% of agents in the first 1 to 2 years are completely out of the business. So a lot of people can get licensed, but they don't necessarily know what to do with that education once they actually get licensed, right? Because we learn all of the stuff that we're not supposed to talk about, like the legalities and things like that, but they don't actually teach you how to sell and how to succeed. So no, I started off in real estate. My ex-husband, to be honest, was a realtor. Long story short, when I realized we weren't probably gonna be together, I was like, okay, I'm gonna get my real estate license too, and I'm going to go off on my own and brand my own business. So I had at that time 3 kids. So I can support those 3 kids without any child support, alimony, just by myself, right? So that's how I started. And that alone, I've been around it for 19 years, almost 20 years, but I full time going into it, I think it's now a little over 12 years. So from that point forward, I grew my business from literally nothing 12 years ago because I was by myself into now a 7 figure business. So, and
That's
now we
exciting.
have, yeah, now we're excited to like completely grow because I know now, obviously, like as real estate, I'm sure it's the same with commercial. Once you get to a certain level, you're like, okay, I either am going to, it's not necessarily always sustainable until you start growing a little bit more, but it took me a very long time to get to that level of trusting someone to bring on.
Yeah, absolutely. What's been your biggest challenge throughout your real estate career to overcome?
When I first started real estate, I started off real estate just myself, like just being me. And, can you imagine 12 years ago? Now everyone uses emojis and it's very casual. But when I first started in real estate, I'll always remember that I was like, I'm a realtor, smiley face. Here's a home emoji. And I was at that time, now I'm 40, going to be 42. But at that point, I was surrounded in an office with agents who were a lot older than me. And I remember being at a meeting and someone clearly said to everyone that was talking about me and said, a new realtor just comes in, this young realtor comes in, she thinks emojis sells a house. And everyone started laughing. And at that point, I was like, okay, well, at least I'm being seen. You guys must be intimidated by me if
Yep.
you think that like that's something to talk about. Like that's fine. I'll have fun with it. So it's kind of funny because that's kind of like what like instilled in me. So I feel like from the beginning, I always thought like maybe I needed to like be this certain person or act a certain way. But I quickly realized that in order to succeed, I needed to stand out from what everyone was doing because there's so many realtors around here,
There.
especially in my area, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I was thinking the same thing. I mean, it's a very saturated marketplace. But
Mhm.
realistically, you have clients that are very diverse. I mean, so what might attract someone to certain personalities or look and feel or styles is going to be very different than somebody else. And so I think the fear-based mindset sets in pretty quickly sometimes when you feel like, okay, everyone is out there. And when we're in real estate, we're in sales.
Yep.
And that means we're probably extroverted, out there talking about it in the public. It's like, and it's crowded. How do you set yourself apart? So, how did you set yourself apart?
So that's the thing too. I feel like when I first started in real estate, I'm not saying I'm not nice now, but I was very nice. I was very on the shyer end, more conservative, but I was also like, I had this drive within me to make it, right? So I'm sorry, back to your question. You said, how did I start or how did I make myself differently, right?
Yeah,
How
how
to
did you
stand
set
out?
yourself apart?
I think I honestly just had fun with it. So I started treating it. I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to do this, I became more of a lifestyle realtor before that was a thing, if that makes sense. Because
Yeah.
now I feel like, and I train my agents that I'm like, just be yourself, build a brand. And real estate now is beyond just selling homes. But I think from early on, I thought, okay, there's something very powerful in being myself and being genuine and not being salesy. I never want to be like a used car salesman person.
Right.
I always thought, okay, I'm going to actually help people because I genuinely wanted to. I never chased the dollar. I changed, like, I felt like I almost brought my clients in and made them as family. So I feel like by doing that and just being authentic and taking the time, some days, I mean, honestly, like, there's been clients that I've showed for like 11 months and they finally buy and they're like, oh my God, I'm sorry. You're probably mad that I want to see another home. I'm like, I'd rather have you call me to keep seeing them than to you call another realtor because you feel bad calling me. Do you know what I
Right.
mean?
Yep. Absolutely. I know a lot of times that in the commercial side of business, a lot of times I'll get a call from a potential client because they have this wonderful idea to open a business and they want to be downtown on Main Street because it's a cute little boutique storefront and I'm so excited for them. And then when we get to talking, they're not ready. They're not ready for
Mm-hmm.
that. And I'm so glad you talk about like the process sometimes isn't as fast as you like it to be because you want to be in the best interest of your clients at the end of the day. And I could not agree more wholeheartedly because I think probably what you found out too is that if my clients are not successful, then I'm not successful. If I put them into a property where they're overextended, even if they pre-qualified, it's just like it's not a feel good. And I think when you live and work in a community where you're also serving people, like again, if they're filing for bankruptcy in a year or they're getting foreclosed upon, that is not a position you ever want to be in, or they didn't feel good about the transaction.
Yep, I think that's the biggest thing too. As I always say, like I'd rather show you as many homes I can. I'll never sell you on like if I'm your listing agent, I will go and I will put all my effort in selling your property to whoever, right? Because I represent you. But as a buyer, I'd rather have you might not ever feel 100% about any property, but if you leave it and feel emotionally connected to it and are upset, like, or maybe like get anxiety, I guess, of what happens if I lose that home, then you know it's the right one. But I'd never
Mm,
push someone on a home that they don't feel is right.
right. Okay, talk with me about that because that is an area that I don't experience as much. The emotional
Okay.
side of real estate. I
Right.
mean, you're working with people for the most part. This is their primary residence. This is where they're going to lay their head down at night and raise their families and do all the things, have the memories
Yeah.
in. So how does that come into play when you're working with individuals and getting them to make a buying decision?
I think that's the biggest thing is probably listening to the clients, like actually physically taking a step back and listening to what they want. Because I think there's a lot of times too when they think they know what they want, but then where they're like, oh, I really want that big yard with my dog. I have two dogs. And then I need a 2-car garage because we have this. And then they'll send you because maybe there's not that much inventory or something like that. They'll send you a property and you're like, just so you know, like there's no fence restrictions here. Like you cannot have a fence here, or it's only a 1-car garage. Is this okay? And a lot of times they're so overwhelmed with the process because it is overwhelming that they almost miss those things or they don't see that. So I feel like it is our job as realtors, probably both of us, our fields, to really listen to the clients, right? So, but real
Mhm.
estate for as far as a home, it is like they're going to be spending most of their time there, like location they can't change. That's, I guess that's the biggest thing, is really listening to them and seeing how they talk, and obviously like getting to know them very well. When they're walking through properties, you can see it on their face. Sometimes I'll walk into a house and I'll see like a face like, you know, and I'm like, okay, we should just probably leave because I can already tell, like,
Right.
you don't like it. And they're like, you could tell. I'm like, I can tell, you know? So
Yeah.
it's very, and once you, I think it's just, it's emotional, but it's really getting to know your clients, listen to them, and get to know them more on an emotional standpoint and as friends versus just as a transaction, you
Right.
know?
That's good advice. Let's switch gears for a second. I know your newest book is about, creating a brand for yourself, a personal
Mm-hmm.
brand in the real estate industry and connecting with people on that vehicle. I know you're very present on social media. Have you always been that way? And how did you get
No.
comfortable doing that?
Okay, so I actually started my Instagram only about 3 years ago. And I had Facebook all the time. I had some social media, but I always felt like it was very invasive. So I was one of those people, I was trying to be private, but I think I had to kind of like talk myself like this is the way we're going. And
Yeah.
as soon as I did that, I learned exactly what I like tell you. I tell my agents, like, this business is not just about sales anymore. It's about branding. And there's been so many times though that people actually have come to me. We were at the Dallas last year. I kid you not. And some random lady just like runs up. If you're listening to, I can't remember your name. She runs up and she's like, "Oh my God, Randy, how are you?" She's like, "This is my husband and this is Randy. I know her from Instagram." And I'm like, my husband's sitting there too, and he's like, "And you are?" And she's like, "Oh my gosh, I don't know you. I'm so sorry. I feel like I know you. I follow you, but like I feel. And it was like that moment that I was like, wow, okay. And I think it's really helped my business because if you do follow me, I feel like you see a lot of my kids on there, my personal life. And I feel like it's so powerful and it's helped my business because people feel like they know me when they call me. They see my sales because my website and everything is in there. So they know I sell, but then they're not intimidated to call me. They feel like they already know me, right? So
Hmm.
my book goes into talking about that and how branding and how we are going into this world where the most powerful thing you have is your name. So, not necessarily the brokerage. The book is for real estate, for realtors, but honestly, I feel like it's pretty much geared to anybody looking to build an online brand.
Hmm.
Okay.
Hmm.
Because it goes into different uses of different platforms, different content, how to use them, when to use them, how to go ahead and actually physically like gear it towards the audience that you're looking to gain. And I just, it's so crazy that our world right now has become so social. So I almost say, like, whether you like it or not, in order to succeed, you almost have to learn to love it.
I
Does that make
know.
sense?
Yes. And I'm so glad you said that, just a few short years ago, you were pretty private on social media. I said, I'm the same way. I mean, I love to interact with people on there. I love to get updates, birthdays and families and all those kinds of happy things. I would love to kind of, push away the negative stuff. But you're right,
Yeah.
it is an engagement platform. And I would say for years, I struggled with be like, I really don't want to share personal stuff. And,
Hmm.
I would say my husband's a very private person. He's not somebody that probably going to bring into my space. And he doesn't need to be in there on a social media standpoint. But you're right. It's the personal story. It's the interactions. It's the testimonials. It's like, here's what happened to me. And here's how I failed or how I succeeded or how I overcame this obstacle. And so, how did you overcome the private to putting yourself out there, in a public format?
So I grew pretty quickly on my Instagram from starting it. And then because I was sharing my life, my stories, and then I was like, okay, I had that moment where I was like, okay, I love this, but it's exhausting. So I'm just going to
Yeah.
post houses because I have the business to post the houses. So I just started posting like just listed, just sold. And I was like, my engagement and my levels, people were like unfollowing me. And I was like, what is going on? Like, I'm showing you guys I'm selling, you know?
Yeah.
And I quickly realized that people want to see you and they want to feel connected with you. And for me, a lot of times I wound up hiring a videographer who followed me around. And I remember being like, ooh, I don't like that. Can you not post that? Can we not do that? And I like felt like, oh my gosh. And he said to me, which is what stuck with me, he said, no disrespect, but that's why I guess I'm maybe on like this on a Zoom. He's like, people know what you look like in real life person. So if you are trying to put an image out there that is not how you look in person, you know, sometimes people will take a photo or even videos. Like it's crazy. They'll make themselves like 30 pounds lighter in a video and you see them in person. You're like, oh my God, are you the same person? Or
That could
business
just
cards
happen.
are like
Yeah.
30 years old.
Yeah.
But people are like, you need to create a brand. So when they see you in a video, they see you in person, they know it's you. And I was like, okay, that's true. Not insecure. I'm not insecure, but like a little bit on video, it's hard to like, oh, I don't like my voice. I don't like this. I don't like how I look. I walk funny, you know? But it's one of those things when he said, people know who you are and what you look like in person. So just post it. Like, stop caring. So you
Yeah.
see a lot of my videos, honestly, are me at home, literally not fully ready. Just, I mean, just being myself. Like, I'll wear like workout clothes, or I'll be like at home in like a sweatshirt. I have horses. I'll be like with my Carhartts on the farm. So that's what it is. It's just like, it was like that switch. So for anyone listening and for you, if you're uncomfortable, do it a few times. It's also like practice and practice and practice. And the more you do it and the more you just feel comfortable with it. It just is kind of like, okay, here it is, here I am. And maybe it's
Right.
like comes with age too or something. I don't know. But yeah, people know what you look like in person. So when you edit something, same thing too. I was dyeing my hair a lot. And I had someone come to me and say, you got to stop dyeing your hair because one day it's like light brown, next day it's black, the next day it's like you're going blonde. So like when I see you in person, you look like a whole different person. I don't even know what like I you need to make yourself look consistent and like you are the brand.
Hmm.
Your brand, your house is everything is not it. You are the brand. And I
Right.
was like, oh, that hit me, you know?
That's really interesting. I know. I have a good friend of mine. She loves to travel, and I love to travel, and I love to live vicariously through people that post their travel pictures right online. And so I noticed, I knew she had some trips this past year. I'm like, "Where's the picture? Show me the pictures. You guys went to some really cool places." She's like, "Yeah, I'm not going to post those anymore." I'm like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, why?" And she says, "Well, I had one person comment on a post I made about a vacation we took a year or two ago." And the post said, basically, the comment to the post was, must be nice. Now, if you take those words at face value, must be nice, you go like, oh, yeah, it was amazing. Must be nice. But she took it as more kind of a snarky, sarcastic, oh,
Condescending.
must be nice, like the have and the have nots. And I said, it saddens me that you are not being your authentic self and sharing these amazing adventures you and your husband are having, because that's what brings you joy. And that's an amazing part of your life, because when I'm with you in person, we talk all about it. Like, tell me all the cool places you went and how this happened and what you went to and where your next trip's coming from. But because one person on social media said must be nice, it shut you down. And I'm so glad you talked about, getting comfortable being you in all of you. I mean, if you're comfortable, if you're the kind of person like I am too, on Saturday mornings, if I have to run to the grocery store, we're in a ball cap and no makeup or whatever it may be, it's like,
Right.
it's me.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the time, it's like, this is what I look like. I actually get chided sometimes because I tend to wear a lot of work professional stuff. And some people in this day and age, people are so casual. They're like, are you going to a funeral? Are you, are you You're going to go meet with your attorney or your banker? I'm like, no. But in my world, most of my clients, they're business owners.
Right.
And
Yep.
granted, I mean, I have some business owners that are billion-dollar business owners, and they show up with in jeans and cowboy boots and a ball cap, but others, they want to know that I look professional as well. And
Right.
so, it's also matching their vibe. I think they probably look at me a little funny because it's not my style to show up in jeans and cowboy boots and a ball cap to a
Yep.
client meeting. I think they want to make sure that I'm professional, but it's very interesting. Conversely, so I'm glad you brought up style and image and what you're all about. I posted something not too long ago. I tend to connect a lot with students. We have interns throughout the year, and I work with their university and school of business and stuff like that. So I meet, I would say, on regular occasion with younger people who are trying to figure out what they want to do and are interested in real estate. And we sit and meet. It always surprises me when they show up at my office, and I don't know whether it's an age thing. I don't necessarily think so. A lot of these young people, they might be the most spirited, gung ho, have a phenomenal resume. They show up looking like they just got out of bed. And I worry about them sometimes because like I said,
Yeah.
I know we've gotten more casual. So can you talk us through your advice on creating your style? Because I think style has a lot to do with your brand, and your style doesn't have to be like mine, where I'm wearing a blazer and I am in full makeup and jewelry and all that kind of stuff. But how does your style create professionalism within your brand, and why should you pay attention to something like that or not?
So it's interesting you said that because, first of all, let me go back to what you said about that negative comment and how it made your friend feel,
Yeah.
because that is so real. However, I don't know if you know, I'm actually going through a coaching program, and the things I'm learning is that any attention, honestly, is good, whether or not it's like learning how to like toughen up a little bit, but any attention means that you're being seen, right?
Hmm.
And
Yep.
people need to realize that, unfortunately, the people who are happy for you probably won't vocalize it because they're just happy, and they're happy in themselves, and they're
Yeah.
just like, everything's great, that's amazing, great, beautiful. But those people who are like so negative inside, they're going to do anything they can to make them feel like, oh, I ruined their mood or whatever.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so powerful to say really quick before you go into other ones, just because um, it's just, that's our real world that we're in, right? Like, the more you put yourself out there, the more you're going to have to learn how to like toughen up a little bit, and
Yes.
be aware that that's just our world, unfortunately, we're in. When it comes to branding and image, I always say, like, my thing is that, you know what, you need to focus on what clientele you want to attract, right? So that's the biggest thing when I talk about branding, when I teach other agents and whatnot. So if like you are in your situation, you're looking at, or if I'm looking, same thing. If I'm working trying to do a listing video, like I will never do a listing video. Most of the time you'll see me in like some sort of black dress. That's just, I don't know why. I have like 40 black dresses. But you'll see me in a dress. You'll see me like at a listing video. That's when I fully am like there. My listing appointments, my listing videos, when I'm showcasing a house. I'm always same thing as you. I'm always dressed nice, professional, because that's the image, the brand that I want to showcase. Now, if I'm showing clients, the same. I usually dress up. I'm not, it's hard for me to like come with the image, but then I feel like it is still important to show that real side of you.
Hmm.
Um, to like, so it's a good collaboration of things. But I think what you said about like people now not knowing, like our children, and this generation not knowing like to dress up. I don't know. It's crazy because I always tell my kids, like, when we go to church, like, dress up, like we have to dress a certain way. So a lot of it's going to unfortunately have to come through probably experiences, someone saying to them, honesty,
Yeah.
like, if you take this job, we're going to have to dress this certain way. And I know that there's a dress code. And I think a lot of times people are so afraid of being honest with each other right now. I think that's, we're almost into that. Does that make sense? Like,
Yeah.
people are so afraid to hurt other people's feelings, or unfortunately, they're afraid of being sued. So they're just like, yes, yes, everything's great. Yes. And then like, those students walk away, or someone who comes to interview walks away, and you're like, oh my God, I would never hire that person. Like, that's how they came on like a professional interview. I feel like
Yeah.
our world just needs to become more real and genuine and honest. But if you're starting to look for a brand in whatever you do for social media, you just need to dress the part. You need to act the part, not necessarily in a lie, but you need to become who you want to be. Does that make
Hmm.
sense?
Yeah, it makes a
You need
lot
to
of sense.
surround yourself around people too. A lot of times people are afraid, like, I'm intimidated by this person. So I'm going to keep my circle safe and I'm going to be the best in the group. But that's not the way to grow either,
Hmm.
because you
I'm
want to
so
surround
glad.
yourself around people who are huge, because that's
Yeah.
you inspire, you know?
Yeah. I know something that I found out over the course of my career as my earnings went up and up is that
Mhm.
nobody that makes more money than you will ever question how much money you're making. And what I mean by that is that it's interesting. As you become more and more successful, I'm so glad you suggested surround yourself with people that are better than you in lots of different areas. You never want to be the smartest person in the room. You want to learn from other people. And the more success you have and the more successful people you surround yourself with, it's almost like the intimidation factor goes away. Because I feel like if you meet people that are more successful than you, it's almost like the door's open. You know, they're happy to share. They're saying, "Hey, yeah, this is how I did it," because they're not intimidated because they figured it out.
Yeah.
And that is very refreshing. And so we kind of go back to the comment that my friend had, the must be nice comment about our travel pictures. And I think you hit the nail on the head. It's the people that aren't in a good place and probably would love to go on that amazing vacation and love to post those videos. But for whatever reason, they're not able to, whether it's a financial decision or a personal decision or whatever. We'll never know the answer to that. But the people that are having those similar experiences are probably the ones that are supporting you all the way.
So I go completely off topic. And now that you said that, I
Yeah.
feel like there are always ways to improve your life. Like, always. So if you say, okay, yes, people can't do that because of whatever reason, I truly believe, like, in my gut, in my heart, like, if you want to do something, regardless of people say, oh, the American dream, is it alive? Like, you can do it. You just have to get out of that victim mentality, right? You need to literally say, okay, this happened, but I'm going to learn. Every experience is a learning experience, right? So I think so many people are like in that victim mentality of like, oh, this happened to me because of this, or my past, I just can't move forward. But everyone, all of us have the exact same opportunities. What's funny is that the more I talk to people, the people who are super successful that I found actually started off with absolutely nothing.
Yep.
It's, because they worked hard.
They worked hard. And I know, and the word I can't, I feel like should be eliminated from most people's
I
vocabulary. And
agree.
I,
Yeah.
I realize that, I mean, not to get into the weeds on something, but you and I are
Sorry, I go
females.
off topic.
Yeah, no, no, but I think it's very relevant. I think part of, the success that you've had, the success that I had, talking about your book and the reasons behind it and getting yourself out there has to do with overcoming a scarcity mindset and getting over yourself and realizing that you might not have a college degree, you might not have all these accolades or acronyms behind your name, or you might not have even been in an industry for a very long time. But I think the way you set yourself apart, and I think this is where you're going with that, is not by those numbers and letters. It's more about, are you willing to put yourself out there and be present, be authentic, and ask questions and really connect with people, because anyone can do that regardless of who you are and your gender or your race or your location or anything like that. It's just
Yeah.
being comfortable, being real.
100%. That's all it is. In our relationship, we are selling properties, but more than anything, it's a relationship business. That's what it's not just about both of us opening the doors. It's
Hmm.
about relationships. And we're going to get
Hmm.
referrals and business and grow because of the relationships and this experience that we provide to our
Hmm.
clients.
Hmm.
That's
Walk
what
me
will set you
through.
apart.
This is
Yeah.
good. Walk me through kind of your social media strategy, because I feel like you have a really awesome brand and presence online. How do you plan for that? Because I know, I'm so glad you mentioned that before it became, you realized you're getting results from it. I'll
Yeah.
admit too, I don't love social media, but I do understand that it's a very integral part of my brand and my business, and then it's an excellent module to communicate and to get to get audiences connected with me. So how do you plan for that?
So I'm not going to tell you something that's not true. I don't necessarily plan for it. it has become just part of my daily, it's almost become part of my job, part of who I am. And I don't, if you look, I don't post to my feed every single day, but I post to my stories a lot.
Hmm.
No matter what I'm doing, I post to my stories. I post behind the scenes for real estate. I post video tours. I post my clients and stories. But the biggest thing I feel like for social media, again, it's just getting comfortable with the camera and making you as your brand. So when people see you at your, whatever it is, whatever page they're at, they see you, they see your title. So for us, it's real estate broker. But they'll come to our page because they like some kind of content or they can relate something relatable. And then that's when they can click on, okay, look, she's a realtor. Oh, here's my link to all my listings. Here's this. But social media status, a strategy, I feel like you just need to show up and be consistent and be real. So it's really not that complicated. But I think so many times people try to make it perfect
Yeah.
that they don't post.
Right.
And I would rather post something imperfect and reach people than try to stress about making something perfect and not post. For example, like some of my listing videos that are professionally done completely with a professional video that like are $500 to $2,000, don't get that many views because they're too commercialized. But then the
Right.
ones when I'm just there with my own selfie camera or I'm just video and talking, those actually gain the most traction. And here's the other thing too is that don't focus so much on views and likes and comments because a lot of people too, especially in our vision, like in our industry, is that if they have like five different friends who are a realtor, but they want to sell, they're seeing your stuff. They may not like it or follow or tag, but they're going to see it. And a lot
Hmm.
of times, two people will DM me or text me, be like, "Hey, I'm looking to buy a house." I'm like, "Oh my god, I didn't even know that like you were still on social media." They're like, "Yeah, well, we've got a lot of friends in real estate, so we just didn't want to like let anyone know we were using it until we actually physically decided."
Sure.
So I think there's because there are a lot of realtors, but people see it. They don't necessarily. So I wouldn't get so caught up in the because that's sometimes I do too. Like, oh my gosh, I only got how many views on this.
Hmm.
But just keep on putting the content out there because people in your circle will see and organically it will grow. Like again, on social media, like Instagram ads and stuff, I don't do those because I tried
Hmm.
doing that before. I felt like I just got a whole bunch of like bots. So
You brought up something that I want to take a deeper dive into: consistency. And I feel like consistency is can be applied to social media posting. It can be applied to your discipline, to how you are prospecting for your business, how you're eating well, you're working out, you're making a plan. Why is consistency such an integral part of sales and especially real estate business?
So in our industry, the reason why I got into real estate is because, and I'm sure I don't know if it's the same with you, but I got into real estate because I wanted a flexible schedule because now I have four kids. I had at the time when I first started, I had three kids. So I wanted something that was flexible. However, because it's flexible, it also can be scary to someone who doesn't have the discipline, right?
Right.
So every single day I went back to physical, I'll show you guys, I don't know if you can see them physical like planners
Yep, me too.
because
Yep,
and it's
it's so
all
funny.
scribbled,
Like,
it's a
I'll,
mess.
I'll,
I
I'll
put
show
it,
mine. I know. It's like,
yeah. I so
yay
This is
for
the thing
paper
is
calendars. I know.
I love it. I do it on my phone because I do have Calendly,
Me
but then
too.
I go and I have to physically see it and I bring it with me everywhere and I wrote notes around it. And the thing about discipline is because we are sales driven, right? Which I love. I don't think I could ever work a 9 to 5 and not have that motivation to always succeed and to more and more and more, not money, but just like the opportunity, right? But if it's so easy for us as people, I would think, just to be like, oh, I'll get to it tomorrow. I'll get to it tomorrow. And we are in a business where even when it's super busy, our real estate market can go like this, right? So
Yep.
even if it's super busy, if we're not consistent every single day with making, okay, we got to be consistent on social media. We have to be consistent with prospecting. Now we have to be consistent with like campaigns, market, whatever. If you aren't consistent, it's so easy to have to backtrack when times are slow. Does that make sense?
That makes a
So
lot of
that's
sense.
the number one thing. Honestly, my biggest thing, and I'm share you guys, I don't know what you guys do, but I I don't get anything from this book. It's just something I read that changed my life. But Miracle Morning, if I have it.
Yes.
Miracle Morning. Here's one for real estate
Hmm.
brokers. I've got a whole bunch of books. I see books in your back too. I read all the time.
Yes.
But this book,
Yep.
again,
Love
it's
it.
just a book. If do you ever read it? So it's
I've
called
read it.
Savers.
Yes.
I wake up
Great.
ever since reading this book. I wake up at 4 a.m. every single day, and at least from 4 to 5:30 or 4 to 6 every single day I work because it's
Yep.
quiet. It's my mindset. So I go through the whole thing. I won't explain. If you guys want to read this, you guys can go through it. And I do my savers and then I work. So that's my time to make sure that I am always, every single day I'm working. And it's putting me in that mindset of like writing this. Other thing I do too is every day is write down your goals. Write them down before you go to bed and then write
Yep.
them down at night. They're probably going to be the same exact goals every single day, but if you write them down, then it's going to make you feel like, okay, I'm going to do this. Like, here it is again. Yes, I read them last night, but the more you become like driven in your goals and the opportunity and you see it and you vision it, you're going to do it, you know?
Yes. I'm so glad you bring that. I love that book. That's a great one. And I
Yeah,
think
I know. Everyone's like, do you sell it? I'm like, no, I just love it. It's just like changed my world. You
there's,
should give me, I probably
there's
sold like
several.
50 of them in the past like two
I
weeks.
know. But you're right. It's creating these good habits in your life that become just like clockwork. And I don't get up at 4 a.m., but bravo to you for doing that. What time do you go to bed? That's what I want to know.
Uh, like 9.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, probably because you get
I
up so
never
early.
used to be, but now I'm tired. But the thing is that like, yeah, I used to be a night hawk, and then I switched it. But at night though, I wasn't as disciplined. Like
Hmm.
so like when the kids went to bed, then I would just be like watching TV.
Right.
So because I was just kind of like not tired, but I really didn't feel like working. So it was the end of the day.
Yeah.
So you got to do whatever's best for you. Some people don't even they feel like the night is their most productive. But when I get in, like I just like to start off the morning with like my goals and just diving straight into real estate, and work.
Absolutely. What have you found over the years in real estate in your business that you can spend a whole lot of time doing this, but it's not creating results? And how do you determine, okay, if you're and so for example, I know a lot of people, we talk about perfection. I mean, they want to create the most curated newsletter with these cool logos and all that stuff. And I know a lot of, I mean, I owned an independent brokerage, so I'm not affiliated with a large national one. I think you do too. Is that right?
No, I'm actually with EXP, but
Your
I have a
XP.
brand called Opulent. So
Okay.
the reason why I went there is though, so I can run my business however I want, because I was
Right.
with Century 21 and Coldwell
Gotcha.
Banker before, and I was very regulated on what I could do.
Yeah. And I know a lot of the personal branding I'm seeing, especially in real estate anymore, is that people can create a brand within a brand, or they can, create a team within a brand, which is important.
Mhm.
But what have you found to be able, I mean, because at the end of the day, we have to make an income. I mean, we're not doing this for free. Nobody expects us to. But what
Yeah.
activities have you found, like, you can spend hours and days working on this, but what really should you be focusing on to move the dial?
Yeah, so I feel like every market, it always changes, right? On different markets, different areas. No, it's fine. I have two
My
dogs
dog
in there
needs to go
too.
wash people at the front door, so I'm sorry.
I have two little barky dogs. I have
I
five
love
pound and
it.
7 pound, or 3 pound and 7 pound dog, and they always bark. Um, no, so every market is different. See, for me, when I first started in real estate, I spent so much on print ad and mailers and newspaper articles and like postcards, and I spent a lot of money. I remember one campaign, it was like $10,000, and
Woo.
I got zero calls.
Wow.
So it's crazy because, but yet my husband, on the other hand, does farms, and he will send out, he'll do his farm in, he'll do postcards and mailers, and he gets like a $4 million farm. I'm like,
Yeah, interesting.
so it's all different markets and different things. But I feel like, so what, you're going to have to find out what works for you. But a lot of things, the biggest thing is I'd rather have people get things out, and mail is good, but only good if you follow up with a call, a text, or walk by and just introduce yourself, because I
Hmm.
feel like mail people aren't as prone right now, especially since COVID, from what I found out, to even check their mailbox, because all of our bills are electronically, everything comes in there. So, and it's very expensive. So the biggest thing I think in real estate is we got to realize we can spend so much money on ads, and things we do. Again, some agents buy leads. I don't do that because I've done that before. I started that. I tried that, and I remember spending. Let's just say, for example, easy math. I spent 10,000. I made 9,700, and it's like,
Uh,
oh, that's my time. That's my money. So, gosh, when it comes down to it, I just feel like biggest thing I've said it, and I really mean it, is don't. I'd rather the biggest thing to do is anything that you can do that is authentic and free, and that is social. Start your whole business on social media, and also personal connection. So anywhere you go, I'm a little annoying because I'm like, oh, because I'm a realtor, like I'll just casually just put it into conversation. I'm a realtor, and this is what I found out, or I had a client because I'm a realtor, right? So it's like, you're a realtor, like I just casually just so get comfortable with self promoting yourself, like no matter what, like just do it. Because people don't know you. If they don't know, they don't know, right?
right. That's
And
true.
I wouldn't say be annoying, but like, I'm always like, and sometimes people are like, oh, you're a realtor? And they know. I'm like, okay, stop. It's like you said it like 5 times. I'm like, oh, because it just comes out of my mouth.
But you bring up a good point. Don't always assume that people know.
A lot of times they don't. If your social media, and I don't have it now, but I had 3 cars this year that were pink. And the reason why they were pink is because I drive around town and they'd be like, oh, there's that pink car realtor. You gotta make yourself known. No matter what you're doing, you have to make yourself known. And just because I have had pink cars and I brand my cars like crazy loud doesn't mean that that's best for you. You know what I mean? So I think everyone has to like dig within themselves and figure out what their brand looks like, what they want to do, what their end goals are. So spending too much time on perfection is probably the perfection in print ads. To me, that's like your biggest waste of time.
It's good advice. You brought up something else I want to talk about is calling a niche. So don't be afraid of that. And I think it's very common, especially if you're getting in started in real estate or in a new business. You want to be the it person for everybody. You're like, I can do that. I can do that. And
Mhm.
I think the reality sits in is that can you? Yeah, probably. But should you? How have you
Right.
decided with your business, because you're licensed in the state of Illinois. So, and I'm licensed in the state of Kansas. So I technically could sell real estate in anywhere in the state. And
Yep.
technically, you can sell commercial and I can sell residential because the licensing
Yeah.
is exactly the same. So why did you choose a niche and what process did you go through for that?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, again, I think everyone really should benefit or would benefit from choosing that niche. We do sell a lot of horse properties, equestrian properties, and properties that are like the lifestyle that we live because we know it. And the more I think you just need to be best known in whatever. There's so many different realtors out there. So you need to find something that know it really, really well, better than anyone, and market it and be loud with it. So
Mhm.
it's just so important because, like you said, I could do commercial. I have people come to me all the time like, do you do commercial? I'm like, I do. I can. I don't, because I wouldn't feel secure and I'd be doing you a disservice. However, I can find you someone that will. Because I think when you start to do too much or take on things that aren't in your niche or that you're not fully comfortable in, you lose that credibility. And
Hmm.
this is something that your credibility and your name are things that you really should hold on to and find value in, and not let anything like discredit that. You know, if you, let's just say I was to do commercial, and I gave someone a really poor experience because it's just not something I do,
Right.
that negative review can actually completely turn down my business, right?
Hmm. That's so true.
So, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing you can do. We can do anything anywhere. But if you're going to be doing, you have to like it too. I feel like you really have to like what you do, because if you don't, it's going to show.
Hmm. That is so true. I get this question a lot, and I'm going to ask you the same question. People say, you make it look so easy. And
Actually,
I
my
take that as a
talk about
compliment.
that
I'm like,
all the time.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad. I want to make it look easy. I want to make it look like when you work with me, it's effortless and it's a great experience, and I don't necessarily want to sit there and give them a laundry list of all the things I do behind the scenes to make it look easy.
Right.
But common misconception, and probably that falls into why the barrier is so low to get into real estate. But how do you make it look easy for your clients?
I get that same thing. If you read like my book, it says literally like the first thing people always ask me, "Oh, how what do you do? How do you make it look so easy?" So I'm like, here's the book, here it is. It's
Yeah.
just I think the biggest thing is to love what you learn. Even if you don't love something, learn to love it, right? So love what you do and educate yourself every single day. Like educate yourself. And the more you educate, and obsessed, people are afraid of that like obsessed word. I feel like obsession is a good thing. But I obsess over what I can do to better myself. So I obsess over like my own self. Like how can I improve? Because the best version of me is going to be the best version to someone else. Like if I can make myself better every single day, I'm going to be a better realtor. I'm going to be a better wife. I'm going to be a better mom, right? So how do I make it so easy? I think I have fun with it. I genuinely love what I do. And there are some days when it's like, oh my gosh, this is so stressful. Like a deal fell through. I have anxiety. I'm not going to lie. I have those days too. But then it's like, okay, I sit back, like, you know what? Um, it's meant to be, or things happen. Like, I can't control everything. And I think a lot of it comes down to learning that you can only do what you can control, and you can try so hard. But as long as you are doing the best you can and always striving to help other people and make it in our job too, I feel like we can't really make it about us. We have to truly make it about our clients. And
Yeah.
that shows, you know? So it's really simple. People tend to overcomplicate, I feel like, everything, you
They
know?
do. And
Yeah.
then I think they also try, I think this is, definitely a sales mindset in general. They anticipate that, well, if it's a no, it must be the same reason as this other person say no. And people can say no for a variety of reasons. And a lot of times no isn't a no. No is not right
Yeah.
now. Or
No is
things,
not a no. It's no is still they're taking the time to say no to you. That means you've actually had a connection. So you
right.
just keep going with it.
You just keep going, and I
Yeah.
know it's funny, the different business owners I've worked with over the years. This happens a lot, especially when I'm working with a business owner, and probably in your role too, where they're getting close to retirement. And so they have built this business, whatever it is, whether they're a tech company or they're an auto mechanic or whatever. And they built this business and this is their pride and joy. And a lot of times in the commercial world, it's much more with the dollars and cents than with the emotional connection to something. But in these instances, there's a lot of emotional connection. And it's not even necessarily towards the building, it's towards the pride and I'm making a change in my life and I'm not quite ready to let that go. Or I want to feel honored by the work I did, because a lot of times the person coming in behind them that's going to buy that property, they don't know them. They don't care. They don't know what the history and the struggle
Yeah.
and the hard work that went into that. So it's a little more, you're right, about listening and understanding where somebody's at to make sure that next transition is a positive
So
one.
how do you handle that when someone's like super emotional about the
Yeah.
job? How do you
It's really,
transition them into that next? Sorry, let's switch it.
I would say pumping the brakes and giving them time. I think anytime when somebody is pressed and they feel the urgency pressing down on them, in my experience, they tend to like put up a lot of roadblocks. They really tend to push back. And then I hear things like, well, maybe we should take it off the market, or maybe we should, I'm like, well, and so I try to paint a picture for them. I said, if you could wave your magic wand and create the best exit strategy possible, what would that look like for you? Like visualize what that looks. Even I know you have it in your head. I know you're thinking about the reason why we're working together is because you wanted to start that process. So let's vision it together. If we could create the most amazing experience for you and it would come out perfectly, what would that look like? So we start dreaming together a little bit. And then
I
I
love
start I
Yeah.
start kind of picking out, I'm like, tell me more about that. Why is that important to you? How do you see yourself spending your days, or what do you love most about this area? And then, you figure out the why. You figure out the why behind the deal. And a lot
Yeah,
of
I
times,
love that because they originally contacted you because they were ready, but something in them made them maybe like, maybe I'm not. But they wouldn't have reached out to you if they weren't at that point.
right. And then no need to start. The one thing I always talk with my clients about, I'm curious to find if you talk to your clients about this too. Anytime we start talking about property, whether they're a startup entrepreneur and they work from home and now they're ready to launch into an actual property, or they're an established company and they're rocking and rolling, I always ask them what their exit strategy is. And sometimes they look at me, they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm just getting into this. I said, well, but change happens. And, it might mean a year from now or 5 years from now or 20 years from now. What is your goal? Are you going to outgrow the space? Are you anticipating that you're going to be retiring and you need to sell? What does that look like? Let's talk about that now, because that might dictate what kind of property you acquire at this point in your life.
Yep. No, I love that. So it's actually great hearing it from a commercial. I think it's a little different for you because like they're starting their business and like you got to make sure that like I don't know, that's all their money. I feel like sometimes
Yeah,
most
a
people
lot of
invest
times it
all
is.
their money into their business. But very similar with real estate. So if someone sees like they originally want a 3 bedroom or they have a bedroom that's small but don't have kids yet, and the bedroom looks like it can barely fit a bed in it,
Yeah,
same thing. I'm like, I know you're not thinking about selling yet or what happens, but if you do have another child or if you have a kid or if anything, you potentially couldn't fit a bed in here, or you know what I mean? Like, so it's always like not saying you want this, or if someone's pre-approved to let's say 500,000, and they're like, we want to be at 500,000. I'm like, okay, what happens if something happened and you lost your job? Like, um, would you be able to afford this house without it? Because anything can happen. So I think a lot of times too, I do like the same exact thing you do. I'm always like, let's just plan it out for worst case scenario. Let's see. But always what happens for resale, like, will you be okay if
right.
this for some reason you have to sell, you know? I don't know.
Absolutely. And I think it definitely in our curated society where we see, I mean, and I know you had an HTV show too. It's like we see these beautiful spaces, whether it's for our home or for our business, and we want that right now. We want to look like that right now. And it's almost like we are willing to spend way over our budget to get this curated look. When in reality, I would rather have somebody see huge financial success, and then if it makes sense down the road, make those smart decisions to do the renovation, to make the rent, but be smart about those economic choices. Because I imagine you seeing your role too. Sometimes you have clients where it's like, I know you want this brand new kitchen and that has all the bells and whistles and the current trends, but if you drop $100,000 into your kitchen, you just outpriced yourself for the rest of the
Yeah.
neighborhood. So financially, it's not a good decision. Build your wealth in a different way.
Yeah, that's exactly what I always say. I'm always like, you have to look at the homes around it, or even if like a home next to it, unfortunately, isn't taking care of the property. I'm like, I know you love it.
Yeah.
However, I'm just have to tell you, like, you know, there's this house next door and the neighborhood just this is like the most expensive. Or when people are building new construction, I always feel like I'm putting my foot in my mouth. I'm like, just don't really, you don't want to be on that really busy street if you don't have to. And then they'll walk through and be like, oh my gosh, I had this just happen to a client. We love this house. It's a spec home. It's available now. We don't have to build. And they're like, I'm like, yeah, if you guys are good with that, but remember, I'm just telling you, you may or may not have a harder time selling it because it backs up to here. And a lot of times too, they're like, "Oh crap, you're right." Like they don't like think about it, but after I say it, they're like, "Okay." Like, and if I feel like too, like I have to say that because if they choose to like still go forward with it, it's okay. But then it's not me pressuring them. So I'm like,
Sure.
2, 3 years from now comes and they're like, "Oh, we really didn't like how busy this street is." I can be like, okay, well, it wasn't, I know that it wasn't me forcing them into something for like a quick sale, you know?
Absolutely. So, one more question as we're wrapping up today. What are books or podcasts or coaching people that you follow and that you feel like are great inspirations for your life and your business?
I love reading. I don't know if you guys can see like, so you have books you read to a lot
Yeah,
or no?
I
I'll
do a
just show
lot.
you guys really quick.
Constantly
This
have
is
stuff
like,
going on.
I
Look
just
at
bring books
that.
back
Yeah.
and forth. Like I have them all over my house. Um, so for real estate related or for life related or whatever,
All of it.
okay, let's go. Rich Dad Poor Dad. I love. Have you ever read that?
I
That's like a
have. Yes.
classic.
Yeah.
Rich Dad Poor Dad. I read a lot for real estate. I like Frederick Eklund's The Cell. The
Hmm.
7 levels of communication is amazing. Max Lucado, I'm like a Christian. I like, I don't know, I love Christian books because I still feel like that is like the center of my life. Like I want to make sure that, obviously, like I'm always with my faith. So that is good. It's called Anxious for Nothing. I actually bought that for my grandma. And I was like, I want this book too,
Yes.
because no matter what, like in our life, like it's just a good way to be grounded.
I've actually read that
Um,
one. That's funny. Yeah.
did you ever read this one? This is a good one too. For anyone looking for social media, obviously, like I read a ton of Grant Cardone book and Ryan
Mhm.
Serhant books. Those are like my number one things.
Yes.
But this book is really, really
Julie
good.
Solomon. It is really good.
Have you read
Yes.
it?
Yes.
I love it because it's like it takes you to that other like social media and like the opportunity out there beyond just what your like real estate's my brand, but what else can I make money off of? And that's where I
Mhm.
feel like I'm so glad we talk because I feel like you're the same way. Like I always tell agents that I'm recruiting in, so now I'm starting to recruit agents. Like I'm hiring someone like literally in an hour to help me recruit. But I always say, like, you may not like our brokerage or office because I'm not going to just show you how to sell a house. Like, I am going to show you how to monetize on like multiple different income streams. Like, I
Yeah.
am such a big believer in that. And Julie does that very, very well with her
Yes.
influencer podcast, too.
Yeah.
So, yeah. How about you? Who do
I
you?
love it. It's funny. All the books you just named,
Yeah.
absolutely. Another one of my favorites is Profit First. So I think if you are a
Okay.
independent contractor, real estate agent, business owner, things like that, I think
Profit
it's
first. Who
Profit
writes? Who's
First.
it by?
Mike Michelson, and I
Okay.
always
I'll write
botch
that.
his last name. I like those because sometimes I think you take a okay, I'm going to call a basic concept, money management, right?
Mhm.
But he kind of flips it on his head a little bit. It's just a different way of thinking about, especially if you're in a commission-based industry, you do not have, for the most part, you don't have regular months. I mean, I know like my fourth quarter is blown it out of the water, but my third quarter was a little lighter. So how do you budget for that, especially in that environment? And it kind of gets you trained to think about those budgeting elements a little differently. And kind of takes the pressure off you from a planning perspective. And it's a very simple concept, which is great. I love your Miracle Mornings too. I just read that this last year, which was
Yeah.
which is
What's
awesome.
crazy is that what you said about I could do a whole other podcast just on budgeting and things like how I literally like we don't need to go, we're like wrapping this up. But like
Yeah.
obviously like if anyone's interested to like how to like 10 extra goals, like that's kind of a little bit of Cardone stuff that we're teaching. But like in order to like have your goals to like write down your numbers, do the math, and on top of that too, like oh my gosh, see my brain, this is what I do. My brain's like all over the place. So excited to talk to you, and I totally forgot what I was gonna say. You're talking about what were you talking about?
Well, books and 10xing your goals and
Yeah.
yeah.
Oh, yes. Anyone. This is like the biggest thing, and you probably have this already. Anyone in real estate, people don't tell you this. The first few years in real estate, I remember making like sending out $50 to $100,000 checks to the government. Um, I get myself paid in an S corp, and then I pay myself.
Uh-huh.
So oh my gosh, if anyone doesn't do that already, you have to
Right.
research that because as realtors and any kind of entrepreneurs, we can get super hard hit on taxes. And that's not something we're
Absolutely.
talking about here, but like that's a huge thing, that I can talk hours about.
Absolutely. No joke. One of the books I just read this last year. See, I have on my tab.
Oh,
Gary
I love it.
Keller's Millionaire Real Estate Agent.
Okay. Yep. I've read that too.
And even though it's very focused on the residential side, see, I have all my pages marked. It's
Yep.
good tactics. It's good. It's a good platform to figure out how to run your real estate business, and how to be organized, how to be disciplined, the whys behind it, and then also, I think we covered a lot during our conversation today. Personal branding is great, and this book came out before really the personal branding element
Hmm.
was front and center. But I think the discipline side of real estate is what's going to make you successful. And whatever it is, whatever your brand is, and the
Yeah.
consistency of taking those steps forward every single day. Because you're right. I even think of, competitors in my marketplace that do well. They do well, but they don't do exceptionally well. And I
Yeah.
think, my goal has always been, and the reason why I got into real estate is because I wanted to own my own business, and real estate was just the lane that I could do that in, and I feel like I could do really well in, and having the complete control of, not only operating my business, but who I work with, my income level, and then you're right, monetizing different lanes of business to ultimately grow wealth. So all my assets are not in one basket, which is very exciting stuff.
we'll
So
talk about on the other end. We don't do it here, but I see like on
yeah,
your website, you do classes on investments and all of that because this year I really want to buy some commercial properties. So maybe I'll
yeah,
connect with you after this,
that would
probably
be lovely.
sometime to figure out, what that looks like too.
Well, I'm going to wrap us up so our listeners just don't sit there and hear us chit chat about all the things in the world. But
Yeah,
Randy,
thank you so much. Yeah.
it's been an absolute joy to get to know you. And I am going to put it in the show notes all the ways to connect with Randy if you are somebody in the Chicagoland area that's looking for a home or want to connect with Randy. But in addition to that, she has lots of other assets that she can offer you. In addition to her book, which is available now on Amazon. I just downloaded it the other day, so I'll put a link to
Oh,
that.
okay.
But thank you very much for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. Bye, guys.
Okay.